Hey everybody, I'm Yvonne Williams with Back to Earth Creations, and in this video I want to show y'all how I use broken cabochons to make jewelry. So this piece that I'm working with was just smashed all the pieces while in transit, and that bums me out. But it's still, I mean, every single little chunk has such a beautiful flash in it. I was like, there's got to be a way that I can figure out, you know, how to utilize this. And so it would have been great if I hadn't have gotten it mixed up about which piece is attached to where. So we're gonna start with trying to piece this together. With varying degrees of success, I'm sure. Ooh, those two seem to fit together pretty well. Let me scooch this over so I'm not wandering out of frame. And this is actually a little bit of a revisit of a tutorial that I had done years ago at this point. And if future Vaughn please remembers, there will be a link to that old video down in the video description. But it was just basically how to do like this style of polymer clay setting. But today I wanted to show you how I go about piecing together the cabochons for this. I don't know if this one goes there. Is it this one that goes there? No, I don't think it's that one either. Okay. So they're not fitting together quite so perfectly as what I would have liked. Which, I mean, we can see all these little flakes that came off. So let's just start by roughing it out. Though if we do find any that fit pretty well perfectly together, I would like to go ahead and get those glued. Oh yeah, those nestle in pretty nice. Now I'm just using Rapid Fuse super glue, and I'm just gonna put, I mean, it takes a wee bitty bit, y'all, and then just smushing back together. Now I do have a little bit of old shop towel here that's got some dried paint on it, and I'm going to go ahead and clean that surface off because I don't want super glue, and I just spread it and it's going to be all funky looking, but we can come through after this is all dried and scrape that off with an X-Acto knife and kind of polish it back up. So I wanted to include that process as well. But this stuff actually does a pretty good job of gluing the stones together, though I would not do this and then continue on to wire wrap it unless it was a very specific wire wrap design, if only because I just you know, I don't want the piece to break again, and since it's already been compromised once, it's going to be even more fragile than what apparently the original stone was, which really I don't think it was a natural, like, I think this got like something very heavy, oops, gluing myself to it. I think this got something very heavy dropped on it in transit, and that's why it was shattered like that. So I'm going to keep trying to piece this together. So I do think that one goes there, in which case it would track that. Does this one go? Where does this go? So it looks like these two pieces fit together really nicely, just like that. And I'm actually not going to wipe off the surface a bit on here because I'd like to compare which one actually is the easier cleanup. And I'm not gonna lie, having the flash in the labradorite makes it a lot easier to kind of see where it was supposed to line up. So that's pretty neat. So I'm just gonna keep setting and smushing. I've got a really cool little crevice there, which we'll kind of get into that as well. Because that's part of the fun part about using broken pieces in your jewelry is they'll have such character that, I mean, it's hard to get on purpose, you know, because who would purposely be going through smashing up their beautiful cabochons? Crafty folks, that's who. But no, I don't think any of us would bash our stones on purpose. But unfortunately, sometimes this does happen. And I think it's really good to be able to, you know, sometimes I've paid upwards of $30 for a labradorite cabochon before. So it's, you really, really, really want to be able to utilize the materials you've invested in. Okay, so fitting in this last piece. There we are. And I'm going to let this dry for probably at least 30 minutes. So actually save any little chips like that for, I like to make little fairy bottles and stuff. So I actually have a little drawer here. Now y'all probably gonna think I'm kind of weird, but I have like a miniature apothecary that I'm working on. And I'm just gonna put those labradorite chips and crumbs into that drawer. If y'all want to see what the final apothecary cabinet looks like, you're gonna have to subscribe or something, or sign up for our newsletter. Actually, that does way more for us than subscribing does, because YouTube is pretty hit and miss about whether or not they actually show you whenever we have new content. Whereas with our newsletter, not only do you get exclusive coupons and it's free to sign up for, but we send out an email every time we have a new live stream, a shop update, a new tutorial, a canceled stream. Like, we try to keep up with stuff on there. So now I have, this is just some black Primo Sculpey that I have squeezed out a bit of liquid bakeable clay in the silver color. You could use whatever color that you like. I actually think this would look really cool done with like the gold maybe, but I really liked the silver with this flash. And I've rolled out on my pasta machine on the thickest setting this clay. And I'm actually going to set down, this is a glazed ceramic tile that I got for like 60 cents at the hardware store. And I'm going to use this because I can cut on it and I can bake on it and then kind of pop it off of the tile. Whereas if I sculpt on here and then try to peel it off and put it on something else to bake, we're going to get some like distortion. So you can see here we actually have it extruding up through the stone. This is filling in some of those cracks and crevices that were left by the chips. And so I really like the applicators on this too. And I'm actually going to come through, I mean, this isn't necessary, but I just want to give you guys an idea of, you know, maybe on your stone doing a glaze like this is necessary. So I have a silicone ended sculpting tool. I'm going to zoom in a bit too. Like, I just feel like maybe that'll be helpful. And I'm kind of swirling in all directions to get this to settle into those crevices and really packing it in there. Now also, I don't know if we get a whole lot of expansion on this clay whenever we bake it, like if it expands or contracts or what. I'm going to wipe the excess off of that, and I'm going to come through with that bit of shop towel. I realize this is probably wasting a bit of clay, but it's the best way I've found to get the effect that I'm looking for. Okay, I'm going to pull off a fresh bit of shop towel. I very rarely need a whole shop towel for anything, so I'm always portioning it out. Then I'm just going to wipe, fold to a clean segment, and then wipe again. And so from here, you can see it's kind of filled in some of those cracks. And from here, I have my X-Acto knife. I'm going to lift this up, and I'd like to I'm cutting at about 1/8 of an inch, or like 3 millimeters around. Trimming just a little bit off. It is easier to trim away, I find, than, oops, loud noises, than it is to add more. I just have my pasta machine off to the side here. I am folding and rolling through until it's smooth, because I don't want any like crevices and stuff. And I'm just using black because I like that. You could use whatever color that you like. The copper and gold and silver metallic Primo clays are actually really nice. So I'm going through, just doing a little bit of shaping. I actually think I'm going to try to set that down without making a, you know what would help? I wonder if this would help. Oh yeah. Okay, here it is. I have a little ball stylus tool. I'm gonna zoom in for you. And pressing down a little bit, I'm actually gonna get a nice shape going on here. Of just dapping our clay up and in. This is making hopefully really nice contact to the stone. It's also coming up around the edge of the stone so that it will hopefully hold it even a little bit more securely. So again, just poke, poke, poke all the way around. You get to bits where you have a little too much excess liquid clay, you can just wipe it off. You can press with your fingers a bit, but I find that messy. And so we may have gotten a little bit of shifting around while we were poking our clay, but we can just tighten it in a little bit more, smush that clay up around it without moving the cab as much. So now that's how that's looking. And we can use, I really like these ball styluses because they have a different sized ball on the other end. And so now we can come through and add a little bit more of like a hammer texturing. And this is going to be our first baking. Again, making sure we've got really great connection between the stone and the clay. I'm going to do another wipe down, just because we can shave off this liquid clay once it's been baked. But I'm going to go pop this into a preheated oven at 275 degrees Fahrenheit. I emphasize preheated because with my oven, if I set it to 275, it doesn't bring it up low and slow. It like blazes until it's at 275. So you can actually scorch or like burn your clay before it's even cooked, like properly cured. So to avoid that, I get the oven preheated and then put it in. And I do that with whether I'm in my gas oven or my electric toaster oven. So, and I'm only going to bake it for about 15 minutes because, well, first off, it's not very thick and you bake it 15 minutes for every 1/4 inch. But also we're going to be baking this multiple times. So all of the clay I'd like to bake for a minimum of 45 minutes. So I've pulled our cab out of the oven, and while it cools, I'm kind of shaping these little leaf canes that if you guys are interested in, I can do a tutorial on. There's this one, then I've got this one. That's kind of a bigger version with a different color scheme. I just want to get some shaping because this did start out kind of just round. So we can take one that's just round and pinch and shape. And I'm going slow with these because these canes in particular are about, oh gosh, maybe like 4 years old. 3 or 4 years old actually. So I don't want to be too rough with it because they might crumble, but they seem to be doing okay. And so then I can come through either with my X-Acto knife or with a tissue blade and take off a slice. And I do like to sirens going by. I do like to just taper out the edges. I don't want the whole piece super thin. I just want the edges tapered out. And then I'm going to actually take the ball tip end of the small side here and pinch up and around. And this is going to make a nice little 3-dimensional shape. So let's try this with a tissue blade. I think I have some, let me scooch this coffee over. So here I have a half of a blade. I broke it in half because I don't always, like, I could have the biggest table on the planet and I would still figure out a way to have confined myself into less than a square foot of working surface. So I'm going to come through and just slice, 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 and slice. Then if I've got one of a slightly different size, like maybe a little bit smaller, because we can take this and shrink it down even more, and that's just going to reduce the design a little bit. And then we can still give it that nice shaping. Slice, that one being an end one's kind of weird. 2, 3, 4, and 5. And again, you can build up the stability of these pieces. Even though it's quite small, it's like 2 millimeters thick right here. But we can come through on the edges and thin it out just there on the edges. And that way we're still going to have the strength of the 2 millimeter thickness in the center. But by having a thinner edge, it's going to make the whole thing look deceptively thin. So again, just coming through, getting that started. And then, or you can thin the whole thing out with your fingers and just see whichever you prefer. And since we're going to be going over this with like some different paints and things, I'm more worried or more focused on getting the leaf shape nice. Let's zoom in a bit, that might help. So there you can see I've actually pinched the tip of the leaf also. And we can pinch it inwards like that. Or we could actually pinch it around to the back, kind of opposite to the shaping on the first side. And that's going to give us a little bit of an effect. And in nature, you know, very rarely will you come across leaves that, oh my gosh, all the leaves on this plant are exactly the same in sizing and coloring and shaping. You know, a maple leaf still looks like a maple leaf, but there is some character between the two. You know, if you picked two right off of the same tree. It's what keeps things interesting, I think. So yeah, just coming through, kind of pinching that. I think I actually prefer the little bit of a pinched edge on where they're on both on the same side. Okay, so I'm gonna check and see. Oh yeah, that's still quite warm. So we'll keep doing this. Though really, let's see if I can't grab this tile here so I can show you how this is looking. You can see our silver hardened up nicely. And then I bet we can come through, and just the sooner we can get this off of our tile, because our stone and our polymer clay will cool much more quickly without the tile underneath it. There we go. Especially if we set it on something nice and cool, like this. Please pardon my creaky chair. Like this big tempered glass surface. Ooh, you wouldn't believe that sounds hot. So now, okay. Our next step is to get the cat hair. Kind of just scooching some stuff out of the way. There we are. Now we can. Also, as this cools, it's going to stiffen up, because right now I could probably force the cab out of the setting, but, well, first off, there's certainly no need in that, but as it cools, it'll stiffen up. So if your clay feels a little flexible, that's all right. That's normal. Okay. So we're doing another layer here. This clay is set to the thickest setting on my pasta machine, which I do have all the different tools and materials that we're using down in the video description below. And if you like shiny cabs, whether they're gemstone or fused glass, or even some different quartz crystals, you can check out our website, backtoearthcreations.com. We do new shop updates every Monday. And if you sign up for our newsletter, you'll get exclusive coupons to our shop. And if you join our Craft Along Club for the month of August, we're actually sending out gemstones in our jumbo kits. In addition to the regular, you know, handmade fused glass and whatnot. And we send, you know, with our Craft Along Club, we send out kits monthly to all of our subscribers who are, well, the members of it. There's more info down in the video description if you're interested. Okay, so we have this sitting, our tile's still quite warm. Because I don't want to, like, rush this and burn my fingers, but I'm also really eager to keep going. Okay, it cooled enough for me to handle, so I'm just going to start by shaping and smushing things around a little bit. I'm going to take this clay that I've reconditioned, just folding and rolling, and I'm going to run it through the pasta machine that I just have here off to the side of me. And I'm just going to run it through, and now I'm going to fold it and feed it through this way. Figured I could keep telling you about it, or I could just show you. So here you can see we're just feeding that in, cranking it around. I've got a hand crank, and that makes a nice long segment. And I'm actually going to fold this in half again, feeding in the end here. There we go. That's perfect. So I've moved this back over, and I'm going to come in and just slice away some of the irregular side. And then just using my X-Acto knife, because this is a little bit longer than what my tissue blade can comfortably slice through in one go. I'm just going to take a slice. Now we could leave this like this and just twist it like so, giving us a nice little twisty pattern. But I'm actually going to roll this out to round, make it a snake. And we could have just started with a ball of clay and then rolled it out into a log and then rolled that out into a snake, but I get much more consistent results if I go like this. Okay. Making sure I've rounded all of those edges. And we're going to get some inconsistency, but that's all right. And then I'm going to fold this in half and just start rolling. Trying to remain consistent about it, but we'll see. There we go. And this is going to get us a really nice little twist, and we can even stabilize it into itself a little bit more by rolling. And this is just going to put contact on the clay. Okay, and so from here, let's take this. We can come around and place our clay just around the border of what we're doing, if that's what you want. Okay, and as we come around back to the tip, I'm just going to slice. There we go. And now before going too much further, I'm going to clean up my scrap. It's definitely always a good exercise in stretching for the hands and wrists working with polymer clay. I really love that. And I like to go ahead and get my scrap or anything left over reconditioned and rolled through, and then I just kind of, if I'm going to be using it again later in the project, I just kind of drape it on top of my pasta machine that I then cover with the box that it came in. I can't reach it from where I am right this second, but I put the box back over and it keeps all the dust and dog fur off. So there you can kind of see we have our frame on there. And again, I feel like black probably wasn't the best color to use. I ran into this problem last time too, because it doesn't really show off, you know, the details really well. But I believe in you, and that y'all are a bunch of very clever, crafty folk. Okay, so here we have antique bronze in these Pearl-Ex powders. Now, do as I say and not as I do, because I am talking and trying to like capture on recording as well. But you will want to use your respirator. I do have an exhaust fan going. I don't know if you can hear it in the background, and that helps a little bit. It's kind of pulling all the fumes that way, or well, particulates and stuff as well. But better safe than sorry, y'all. So while the clay is unbaked, I'm just going through rubbing this with my finger, and I'm being very careful to not stir up the Pearl-Ex. And I'm just coming through and petting it with my ring finger. Just getting some on there. And then burnishing it on. Oh, I thought I was going to do silver, wasn't I? Well, the bronze was calling to me. And we can even take it and burnish it into that clay that has baked and is still poking out. Because I haven't shaved it with my X-Acto knife yet. So yeah, just coming through, really rubbing it into the surface. And now we can start blending that into our base layer of clay too. Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and cap that up before I make a mess and get it all up in my lungs. We only get one pair of lungs, you guys, for the most part, so you do want to take good care of it. Okay. So now we can come through, and I've got a little bit of messiness over here that I'm going to kind of shave off with our X-Acto knife. Just kind of carefully chiseling away around the seams, because I kind of want to save the seams, you know, because I think it looks cool. There we go. I think that looks very neat. Okay, so now from here, I'm going to take, I have this like needle tool. Let me scrape some of the glue and adhesive and paint and stuff. And you could use a T-pin, you could use an awl, there's all sorts of stuff you can use. I'm going to take this little leafy thing. I'm going to press it down and then press. So again, I'm taking this piece, bringing it down, and pressing and poking through like right there, because I'd like to give it a little bit more depth if I can. So by stabbing through and pressing, I'm kind of smushing it into the clay underneath it. But now also, let's grab just a little pinch, little nub of the black clay, and I'm going to roll it, and then I'm going to set it right there in the middle. Let's see if I can't, nope, that's the wrong direction. Get that brightness unnaturally up. And that way hopefully y'all can see what it is that I'm doing. So we've put that bit of black clay, almost like a little berry, on top of the leaves, and then we'll smoosh down like that. And then I'm going to take another very small bit of clay, and I'm going to roll it into a little ball, and then I'm going to set it, boop, right there, just like that, so that it makes it look kind of like so. And now I'm going to take my needle tool, and I'm going to poke, boop, all the way through in the middle of that. And from here, we can actually, either with the same color or a new color, let's do a little bit of this sunset gold. I'm just going to touch it, very little bit there on my finger. And I'm just patting the surface. And we can even get the leaves a little bit if we want, just there on the edges of them. Yeah, I wasn't planning on that, but I like it. so it kind of gilds the edge of the leaves. And my clay is very, very warm right now, so it's very soft and susceptible to smushing. So you could use a firmer clay if you like. I'm just gonna put a little bit of that sunset gold on top of our antique bronze as well. So we could leave this piece like this, or we can come through. Like, we could bake it right now too, which would be a really good, this would be a good stopping point for baking. Or we can just keep carrying on. So I'm going to take this and gather up just a little bit of scrap. Whoops. Before laying this down on the next piece, I really want to decide which angle is best for the flash in the stone, and I really prefer it, I think, point down. It really shows off that that flash really nicely. So I'm going to go grab some hardware or some wire that we can make our hardware out of, and I'll meet you guys right back here. So here I have my American chainmail sampler. There's also one that I really enjoy by Chainmail Joe, but I am using the 16 gauge 7/16 inch aluminum ring that has not been closed. And the reason for that is I actually want it to be able to, you know, grab a little bit into the clay underneath it. So I'm going to set this here, and then I am actually going to just do some little spots with my needle tool around the edge. You could drag a line, but I kind of like doing a connect the dots sort of thing. Okay, now let's see if we can. That clay really likes sticking to itself, so you need to be a little careful. There's my knife. So now I'm going to come through and cutting it out. There we go. Pull all that off. And we get to decide from here too. You could just use one ring to reel them off, one ring to bind them, one ring to put in the clay and in the oven. I don't know. I lost my train of thought. Or like if you just want to attach a bail that way, or you can do like how I'm going to, and I am setting 2 rings, one on either shoulder, because if this is the pendant, like that's kind of, and then I'm just taking this and kind of, and this is why I really like having baked the first layer of the bezel first, because now I can press on this and I'm not having to worry about distorting everything. I'm just distorting and mangling the base layer, which, you know. Coming through with our tissue blade. It's really time to get a new one. This one's like 8 years old and has some weird stuff stuck to it that I've been unable to remove. Okay, so now from here, we can smush this in a little bit. We can start blending our sides. I'm trying to not distort the twisty bit that we did, but at the same time, I really want to get this nice and incorporated, and so we can come through and be smushing it in, doing some nice hammered texture, getting it all intermixed between the ring and the clay. Like blending out those seams, I think is a really, really good idea. And you can give this all sorts of like a mossy effect, which I'm actually going to show you guys after we've baked this, how I'm going to be adding the absolute final and finishing touches. So I do want this really nice and textured here on the sides. I'm not so much worried about the back, though that would be cool. So I ended up not using nearly as many of the little leaves as I thought I would. Removing the dog fur. Meh, it'll be fine. We'll just tuck it in there. I have never had any problems other than like maybe a slight burning hair smell whenever I get dog hair stuck in any of my polymer clay. So, dog or cat hair. So, if you have like, if you drop a piece of clay and you're like, oh no, you can smush it up and use it as like scrap or the core of a big bead or something. Now, if, I personally love mixed metal tones. I know that that's not everybody's bag, but I love it. So, I don't mind a bit the silver with the gold. They do have anodized aluminum, or you could get copper or brass jump rings. So you do you, or you could have just done silver to match whatever metal you have. So I'm coming through, just cupping the front gently with my hands. I am gonna just add some texture here onto the back. After doing a few like thwacky dots, I'm now coming through and texturing a little bit more lightly but densely to just gradiate out what we'd been doing. And I am making the conscious choice to leave this mostly black. I don't mind the little, you know, pigment fingerprints that I've left. Okay, there we go. So now this will go back into the oven for what will be our final baking. You could totally add some more little like leaves and stuff, but you know, after all, why not? Why shouldn't I? I don't know. I like it with just the one on the tip, actually. Just the little leaves there on the tip. Just a little off center. A little wonky and weird, just like me. That's fine. So we are going to go pop this into the oven for 45 minutes. If you're using a light toned clay, or you do like some sculpted lilies or something out of white clay and you don't want it to scorch, just lower down your heat a little bit. Bake it maybe for 15 minutes and let it cool, and then 15 minutes and let it cool, and then 15 minutes and let it cool. You could cover the whole thing in cornstarch or tent it, or I kind of am lazy. I'm a lazy crafter. I will admit that. And so I just like to just bake lower for longer instead of having to, you know, tent with foil, or though that is probably the easiest route other than just baking it low and slow. So yeah, I'm gonna go pop this in the oven for 45 minutes, then I'll meet you guys right back here. Okay, so here we are, piping hot out of the oven. That is okay. Just gonna slide right under that. Plop that down there on our glass. Set this off to the side to cool. Okay, so this is hot, Vaughn. Don't touch it. That is more for me than for you guys, because I had caught myself just reaching in to be like, oh, okay, I'll set it down. It's fine. No, it's not fine. Don't touch it. So while this cools off to the side, I am going to rummage out a few things. Oops. can, then I will. Okay, so what I'm going to be doing is I'm using something called, it's like mixed turf for blended turf for like dioramas. And I really like this color here. And when it's been mixed and baked and it's finished, it's not like rock hard, but it's really got a lot of fur stuck to it. Like I can kind of wrench off and break off a piece, but that's because this was loosely mixed and then even more loosely packed on there. But you can see like it's not real crumbly. I'm going to experiment with it. So we could do basically the same thing out of like some mixed clay. Like we could take this bit here and we could do, I know I said I wasn't going to bake it again, but I'm going to take off the end piece from this. If we were to do this with polymer clay, we would need to bake it again, but we can come through and use one of these wire brush tools to stab. Like you could just mix a bunch of different green colors together, really. Or if you wanted more of an autumn look, you could do gold tones or autumn tones or spring greens. But you can see if we punch it a bunch with the wire brush, it makes it look a bit like moss. And then we can come through, clean out our brush real quick. And use like this needle tool or a T-pin or something even, and just break off some little segments. And then we could come in and pack that in and around wherever we want there to be moss. And that's an excellent way of going about it. But I want to experiment with this blended turf. So the way that we will be doing that is trying to find the cap to that so it can go over there. Please pardon me while I rummage and try to not burn myself on the tile that I've set directly in the middle of where everything goes. So now I am going to use, where's my glue at? Just some, we could use diamond glaze. This is very much like a Mod Podge. I would rather, I think in this instance, use my glue that I can't find. Oh, it's because it was behind my shop towels. This is a fabric and craft glue. It comes out white, but it dries colorless. Like, it's not like super shiny though. The diamond glaze is pretty shiny. And you could also just use just regular Elmer's glue, but I'm going to glob out, whoa, that's way more than what I need. But I am working on another project that uses this, so it'll be fine. And now I'm going to open up our baggie. I'm going to move my coffee because I don't want to get, this stuff is gritty. I'm pretty sure you're not supposed to eat it, but I did and I haven't died yet. But just because I survived it doesn't mean y'all should, you know, go all willy-nilly dumping it into your coffee the way that I seem to love to do. So I moved my coffee out of the way, and I'm just going to get in here. And we can always add more. I was very heavy-handed with the glue, but we'll figure it out. And then just a little bamboo skewer. You can see this stuff is not the static grass for dioramas. It's the blended turf. Is that what it was called? Yes, blended turf. Coarse in texture. So this stuff here, you can see it's like mostly, like we did a lot of glue. So I'm going to be adding a significant amount of this turf. But yeah, for dioramas, they do have a product that's like, I think it's called static grass. That is not what we want for this. I've tried it and it does not get me the effects that I want. Probably should have measured, but well, here we are. And yeah, whenever it starts coming off in little clumps like this, it's perfect. Might be a little dry though, actually, now that I'm thinking about it. I don't know, we'll see. So I'm going to put this away back into its bag. I don't recommend baking the blended turf. So once you have it, like I would only apply this after you have finished your last wave of baking with your piece. So let's see. Oh, that's still quite warm. That's all right. Let's see how the back came out. We've got some shiny spots, but I like it. We're going to be doing this on, oh, I wish I had another tile. I had another tile at one point in existence, but I don't know where it went. So here we are. So this one's still pretty hot, but I'm going to set it on a pot holder, lift this up, set that down, do them a little shuffle. Set that back over yonder, take this guy, set it right there, and I'm going to start. The glue that I'm going to be using will scrape right off of this tile, and I store it upside down, but it is super thick tacky glue that I glue the lid onto, apparently. Oh, Vaughn, how have you done this? Oh, there it goes. Okay, got the cap off. Disaster averted. But I'm going to come through and just kind of touch this super thick glue around our bezel, or around the stone rather. And I am also going to apply it here around on our stone, like on the very outside parts. And I like this stuff because it stays put where you put it, but it does take it forever and a day to get down to the tip, so that's why I store it upside down in a little like box. So now from here, I'm actually just going to take this stuff and plop it out like that. Ouch, this tile's really hot. I know that there's easier ways of going about this, yet here I am. Oh, and I left the oven going. So I'm just kind of mounding this stuff forward and tapping it in. Because I don't want to compress it too much, because I really want it to keep its nice lofty, looking mossiness. But at the same time, I need to get it making good contact to all of our glued surfaces and everything. So I know you get all super gluey. I'm just gonna rub my fingers together over the trash. Okay. I'm gonna zoom in just a little bit. Any tools that I use with doing projects like this, I just try to make sure that they'll be easy to get the dried glue back off of. But this is my favorite way. I used to want to try to use like preserved mosses, but those are so fragile. They're beautiful. They're kind of perfect for it, but very fragile. And I just could not find ways of being able to incorporate the preserved mosses into my jewelry and costumes without it, over the course of years sometimes losing color, deteriorating to the point of just not existing on there anymore, getting dusty, being difficult to wash. This stuff, the idea is that we use so much glue, just impregnating the entire, like, just saturating it is so saturated with glue that whenever it dries hard, almost like it's been suspended in a resin casting. Okay. So I'm going to take that and pop that back in there. Actually, being on this hot tile seems to be helping it dry a little faster. So I've just popped some on basically everywhere that there was glue. And then you can kind of kind of smush it into spot. And now that we have done this, we can come through with, I believe, where are you at? Haha, I have found you. Now we have a gloss and a matte ultra. And these are Mod Podge. I'm going to use the matte just because I really don't want this being like shiny if I can help it. And I'm actually removing the spray nozzle. I'm gonna do I shake it or stir it? Let us consult the instructions. Sorry, I like never do that, even though I know that I should. So it's very significant. Shake well before using. Yes, sir. Yeah. Shake, shake, shake. Shake, shake, shake. It feels like it needs something like a rock in it to make it shake better. Like a little agitator or something. Where's a rock? I don't want to use that rock. I'll use a marble. Oh, please don't come crashing down. Uh-oh. Okay, disaster mostly averted. Okay. I am just going to use an old pretty marble. Here's a little half a one with like a thingy in it. I want to use that. And just drop that in. The glass won't be reacting with anything. Oh yeah. Because this has been sitting on the shelf. Oops, knocked the other one over. For a really long time. So now we should have this pretty well shook up. Oh yeah, it's all good and sudsy. I'm gonna set that right there. And I'm using a pipette to slurp up some of this concoction, way more than what I actually need. And then I'm going to come in and carefully apply this to where it can soak in to our moss. I'm starting kind of on the front because I want it to be very heavily saturated there, and then start working its way down and in. Oops. And you want to do this before it starts getting too dry, because otherwise, like currently with it being a little bit damp, the surface tension of the moisture in the moss, like of the moisture of the glue in the moss, is going to help it seep down and in. And this helps set everything in just a little bit more. You don't want too many bubbles getting stuck in there. And again, I don't want this being overly shiny, so that's why I'm using the matte finish. Just because very rarely in nature would you be coming across a moss that is like a high gloss shine. And I may actually go through with the diamond glaze that we have and add some little spots after this is all said and done and dried to make it look like there's like little bits of like dew and stuff stuck on there. So I guess we did end up using more or less the whole dropper worth. Now we can just get some water up into that. This is water soluble, so cleanup is pretty easy. And then we can just keep using this dropper for more projects like this, because I certainly have a whole bunch more of this moss to use. And now this, and you can see how it started to whoop, drip off all over my pants. Really? Oh no. Well, they survived this far into the day. So yeah, we can drain off the excess if you want. But I think that is going to come out really cool. We covered up a lot of the detail of the polymer clay, but I'm okay with that. And also I don't know how much of this is going to just be broken off anyways. So I'm going to let this dry overnight, and then I'll meet you guys back here again to test wear this and also to finish it into a complete necklace. Hey y'all, it is the following day, and I've had this drying on just the back of like a silicone mold, and this is how the back's looking. And this is how the front's looking. Now I bet if we are a bit rough with it, yeah, we're gonna get a little bit of things falling off here and there, but not too much. Gosh, I do love, oop. Sometimes you just gotta hit it from a different direction too. Now I do think I am going to be going through and I'm going to do a second application of our matte Mod Podge. We put a little like thing in this, didn't we? There it goes. Just shake the crap out of it. And now I don't know how well this is going to saturate now that our stuff has kind of already dried once. Take it and get a little bit up into our pipette. And I'm just going to try again to get this over. Oh, it's saturating okay. Whoops. Oh yeah, all over the face of the stone. Which I was specifically trying to avoid. Yeah. I think this is going to be a great way of setting all of this. I am going to set it back onto the table, but maybe a little bit of zooming in might help. So just going through. Yeah. There's not a whole lot of spots where this is porous enough for it to absorb in, kind of like how we had done the first time. So let's see if maybe using the spray setting might be effective. In which case, we could maybe mask this off with something Or we could just use a little piece of paper and kind of block the edge. And just mist this. I hear you, kitty. I'd say we have her trained, but truthfully she has us trained that whenever she rings the bell, she wants to go outside. So yeah, at this point, I think I do prefer misting it. I think that gives us a lot more even coverage with a lot less wasted product. And I'm hoping that this will achieve binding all of our little moss fibers together a little bit more. So I'm going to leave this to set up for another 24 hours probably, or at least another 12. It's, well, I don't know what time it is. I don't have my watch on, so I don't know what time it is right this second, but it is around dinner time. So probably tomorrow after breakfast, I will revisit this. Hey y'all, so we've moved over here to my wire wrapping station, and this is how our cab has come out. I really love using the silicone mat. We're still a little bit damp on the back side, but I think that'll be all right. I may actually go through and spritz on the back side of this. I don't think that'll be necessary, but I should have turned this or lifted it a little through the night, but I can come through here like while it was drying. I'm just going to scrape off with my fingernail the thicker bits of glue, and then I'm going to leave that to dry the rest of the way. And while I do that, I am going to make a whole bunch of, well, I'm going to make 10 wire wrapped links, and I am using 20 gauge para wire. Some good stuff. And basically I want to use as thick of a wire as I can that will still fit through all the beads that I'm using. There will be links in the video description to the bead caps that I'm using, which are an enameled iron bead cap. If you can kind of see what we're doing there. And they fit perfectly onto these 8mm faceted green aventurine, and I'm using a 4mm round moss agate. I really love this faceted green aventurine paired with the moss agate. I think that's going to tie in really nicely with the rest of our piece. You could use any sort of metal tones that you like, or any kind of gemstones. Some more labradorite along the neckline would be really nice also. But what I'm doing is I'm just threading this up. I'm going to repeat the pattern on my bead, or on my wire, with all of the stones I'm going to be using, and then making them into these wire wrapped links. So I'm going to get all of them strung on, making sure that my bead caps are facing the correct way. And I just like this because I can get it all prepped up and then go plop on the couch and watch some gardening videos, or go sit on the front porch and watch the hummingbirds, or just I can take it in the car without having to bring a bead tray with me. Keeps everything real nice and portable. So you can see I just string it on like that. And then I'll meet you guys back here to show you how I make the links. So I've made it to our last section of beads to add. And just sliding them onto the wire. Now you could just as easily make a bead strung necklace instead of a wire wrapped one. Let me know down in the comments if you guys would like for me to cover that in a future tutorial. But I'm just going to take all of this and scooch it down my working wire. And then I'm going to come in about 4 finger widths, or how long is that? About 2.5 inches. of wire, and I'm going to bend at a 90-degree angle. Now you could do your loop where it has just one repetition, but I really like to use my mandrel pliers so that there is no taper in the, bit that I'm wrapping around, and I like to wrap twice. I just think that makes it look very substantial, and I like to use 2 jump rings whenever I join my links together, so it just makes the whole thing look a lot more solid. And from there, I am going to twist once, twice, and thrice around. And I'm going to then snip with my flush cutters. And then I'm going to use my bent nose pliers to give that a smush so that there's no little pokey bits. We can bring that together, line it up a little bit better. And so now I'm going to slide up just the one segment and see how it sits. And snip off that much. And from here, I'm going to come out just a few millimeters, about that far, and do a 90-degree bend. Take our mandrel pliers. You could just use round nose pliers, you could use a knitting needle, or I don't know if I would recommend like a wooden dowel, just because if it's anything that has a little bit of a bite to it and you twist your wire around it too firmly, it can make it difficult to pull the wire off. Okay, and I'm being careful here holding this to not cinch down with a death grip and bite the pliers through the wire. But I am using my bent nose pliers. I just want to hold it firmly enough to keep things stable. So there's 1, 2. Oh, this is all kinds of wonky. It's kind of moving itself down. You can see how that kind of came together a little weird, but if that happens, we can just build our wire up over the bead and then come in and smush it, and that's going to help fill in that gap just a little bit. There we go. Also, parawire is affordable enough that you could just snip all the wire off and rewrap it. If it comes out looking a little mangled, that's okay. And get lots and lots of practice this way. There we are, and that is a wire wrapped link. And now we will take these, and using our tapered flat nose or chain nose or whatever pliers you like, and my bent nose, so whichever pliers are your favorite for opening and closing rings, I'm going to hook 1. Whoops. Whoops. Oh, my pliers are just, there we go. I keep slipping off. My pliers go, whoo. Not the pliers' fault at all, but I'm trying to do this through the screen of the camera, and I'm just all thumbs today. So there we go. So I've added 2 jump rings, and you can see how that looks. If I had done 2 loops on this side, it would have looked a lot more balanced and substantial, I think. So now if I had used an 18 or a 16 gauge, I wouldn't have worried about the double loops because it would have looked nice and insecure. But you can put a lot of pressure on this. Like, it's actually squeeging, like squishing down my bead caps to pull on it, and it's not even budging those rings. Now the rings that I'm using are stainless steel 20 gauge wire with an inner diameter of 1/8 inch. And again, all the tools and materials that I can link to will be linked to down in the video description below. So I'm going to do 2 segments of these, each 5 links long, that we will then meet back here to attach to the focal point of our necklace. So we have all of our links made, and it came to my attention that this would be like a very short necklace if I just did the 5 units. And so I decided to do a little bit of just 10 4mm beads on their own wrapped link, and that's going to be like the back of the necklace. Now there are other ways that you could extend this. If you could just make more bead links and have that be going all the way up to, shoot, you could do like a 36-inch necklace with just repeating that pattern of like the bead links strung together. You could do a long section of chain if you just want chain up against the back of your neck. You could do chainmail segments between each of these wire wrapped links, which that's my go-to. This is the first time actually in a long time that I'm doing this setup where I just do kind of a bar of beads across where the back of the neck will be. And I like it because there's not a whole lot of stuff for my hair to get tangled in. There's nothing pokey to irritate the back of my neck where my skin's quite sensitive. So just doing it the same exact way. And again, unless you're taking your wire and like bending it to extremes in the same spot a lot, you don't really have to worry about it breaking on your necklace. And that's another thing too, is I could have done, if I wanted a quite long necklace and wanted it to be flexible, I could be doing, we've got the wire wrapping in the front, we could just do strung on beading wire like tiger tail or AccuFlex or something like that. So it would be very flexible, and I think that would be probably my favorite option for if I wanted to make this quite a long necklace. Now, I'm going to be wearing this one, and I like to wear my necklaces at around 19 or 20 inches is where I'm happiest, because I don't want my necklace so long that like if I bend over to pick something up, I get hit in the face with my necklace because it's swinging, or I don't want it to get tangled and lost inside my shirt, or something like that. So to each their own, and that's part of the beauty of making your own jewelry. Oops. Is you can make it perfectly to your own specifications. There we go. So now we're gonna use a couple of these rings, and the way that we're going to attach all this is with more of these stainless steel 20 gauge 1/8 inch rings. Just looping everything together. There we are. So you can see that gives a nice little extender segment. And hooking these on. Now I am still going to add extender chain, which is about a 4mm size loop of chain that I get from theringlord.com. It's enameled iron, so I don't have to worry about it turning my skin green or irritating me. And I really like that for making a counterweight for, this is a larger piece. I want something kind of hanging down the back of my, down the back of the necklace, and that can provide a little bit of balance. It keeps things from shifting around as much, and it gives me an option that if I do want to wear it longer, I can just, well, hook it somewhere longer on the chain. This is probably going to drive some of y'all insane, but I'm going to use, I love mixed metal tones. It's probably my favorite thing to incorporate into my own jewelry, and that way I don't have to worry about matching sets at all. I can just bloop, pop it on there and it matches. So I'm using a brass toned clasp. I'm digging in here and I'm pulling out one of the 18 gauge 1/8 inch aluminum. It'll be fine. 18 gauge is pretty thick for a jump ring. And I am going to open that, hook it through our clasp, and then hook that through our necklace. I'm going to go ahead and close it. Check and make sure there's no pokey bits. We want a nice good closure there. And now from here, I'm going to be using just the same rings we had been. I'm going to hook through and then come around and hook onto the ring that's embedded in our polymer clay. And I'm hooking there and then hooking through. Sometimes it can help to just reposition where your pliers are holding, and that can make a lot more space to be able to fit everything together. But I think that makes for a really nice transition. It's not super bulky, it doesn't look dinky, I don't think. You could use more rings, you could use thicker rings. If I were using more or thicker, I may have made this loop on the end of that wire link be larger to be more accommodating of the bigger loop. So just elements to kind of think ahead and prepare for. And just hook it through, there we go. Excellent. So now from here, we could add some extender chain, or we could just hook directly through right there. But the way that I detach the chain would be the same exact way that we did here, just attach the loop but to there, and that way we'd have a bit hanging down. And we could actually make like a little pendant or something for hanging off the back side as well. But I think I'm going to leave this here like that. And this is how I like to use, one of the many ways that I like to use and repurpose broken cabochons. I think it makes it look very pretty. And if I were trying to piece the cab back together and make it look like it had never been broken, people would see it and be like, hey, this was like broken, why would you sell me this? Whereas if I make it kind of obvious that it was broken, but make it look like it was on purpose and this is the intent behind the piece, then I don't know, I feel like it makes it a little bit more transparent, you know, what I've got going on in my pieces of art. And I don't know, I really like it, y'all. And also, oh my gosh, at that flash. So, very cool. Now also, finishing touches, I'm going to get in here and use just a T-pin. And I'm just going to scratch in my signature and the year. I could have used an engraver or something, but I like for it to be very, very subtle. So there we are. If y'all have any questions, comments, or ideas, please leave them down below. I love hearing from you guys. Follow us on Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok if you'd like to see some of our pieces in action. You can sign up for our newsletter at backtoearthcreations.com and get notifications emailed directly to you without having to rely on YouTube or anything like that whenever we have new videos, like tutorials or live streams, when we have shop updates, anything like that. So also, if you enjoy our free tutorials and would like to support the creation of more of them, please consider joining our Craft Along Club. We've always got something cool going on over there, and all that's down in the video description or backtoearthcreations.com. So I will see y'all in our next video, and until then, you guys, happy crafting. Mwah. Bye.